Pain is something we all know. It comes in many forms: physical, emotional, and even spiritual. Sometimes it is sharp and sudden. Other times it stays with us for years, like a shadow. But pain is not our enemy. It is a part of life, as natural as the sunrise and the falling of leaves. When we feel pain, our first reaction is often to push it away. We want to escape it, fix it, or cover it up. This is understandable. Pain is uncomfortable. It makes us feel weak, alone, or broken. But trying to run from pain often gives it more power. It stays hidden inside, and it grows heavier. To understand pain, we must begin by allowing it to be here. Not to like it, but to recognize it. Like listening to the sound of rain, we simply notice. This hurts. That simple act of noticing opens a small space inside us. In that space, something can begin to shift. Pain is not only something that happens to us, it is also something that reveals what matters to us. We feel pain because we care about people, about dreams, about life. Pain shows us that we are alive, that we are human. It reminds us that we are deeply connected to this world. Sometimes people believe that being strong means hiding pain or pretending it doesn't exist. But true strength is different. It is quiet. It is patient. It looks like sitting with your pain without judging yourself. It looks like not needing all the answers right now. Pain does not come to punish us. It comes to speak to us. It has a message, though it may take time to hear it clearly. Maybe it is showing us that we have been ignoring part of ourselves. Maybe it is asking us to slow down. Maybe it is simply asking us to stop and feel. If we can begin to see pain as something to explore, not something to fear, we take the first step toward insight. We begin to see with new eyes. Not eyes that avoid pain, but eyes that can see through it. When emotional pain enters our life, it often feels like a storm. We may not understand why we feel the way we do. Sadness, anger, fear. These emotions can be confusing and even frightening. Many people try to push them away, hoping they will disappear. This is natural. But the more we resist, the more they return. We resist emotional suffering because it feels like a threat. We are afraid of being overwhelmed, of losing control. Some people were taught that emotions are a sign of weakness. Others may have been told to stay strong or just move on. So we learn to hide what we feel, even from ourselves. But emotions are not enemies. They are messages. When we feel sorrow, it may be pointing to something we lost or something we deeply value. When we feel anger, it might be telling us that a boundary was crossed. When we feel fear, perhaps it's reminding us of a time we were hurt. These emotions are not here to destroy us. They are here to guide us. The problem is not the emotions themselves. The problem is our refusal to feel them. Imagine a wave rising in the ocean. If you try to fight it, you may fall. But if you learn to move with it, it passes through you. Emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. Resisting emotional suffering can also close us off from others. We may smile when we feel like crying. We may say, "I'm fine," when we are not. This creates distance between our true self and the world. Over time, it becomes harder to know what we really feel. We may even forget how to be honest with ourselves. Facing emotional suffering takes courage. It means allowing ourselves to feel without shame. It means accepting that we are human and that it's okay not to be okay. When we stop resisting, we may discover that our pain is softer than we thought. It does not need to be fought. It needs to be heard. And in that moment of listening, something inside us begins to heal. Not because the pain is gone, but because we are no longer running from it. we are walking with it, one step at a time. There is a quiet strength in facing what hurts. Most people believe that avoiding pain will protect them. They believe that turning away will make it smaller. But pain does not disappear when we ignore it. It waits, and sometimes it grows louder. When we choose to face what hurts, we are not choosing more suffering. We are choosing honesty. We are saying, I will not hide from this anymore. That is a brave decision, and it is the beginning of deep transformation. Facing pain does not mean we must solve everything right away. It means we stop pretending. We stop covering up our wounds. We allow ourselves to sit with the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And in that truth, there is power. Pain often carries stories of loss, rejection, failure, or fear. These stories live inside us, shaping the way we see the world. If we never face them, we stay trapped in their shadow. But when we bring them into the light, we can begin to understand them. We can begin to ask, is this story still true? Often we find that it is not. To face what hurts is to give ourselves permission to be real. We don't need to wear a mask. We don't need to pretend that everything is fine. The world teaches us to hide our pain, but healing begins when we allow it to be seen, even if only by ourselves. Sometimes, what we fear is not the pain itself, but the feelings that come with it. Grief, shame, regret. These feelings may seem too heavy to carry, but when we stop running, we find that they are not as heavy as we imagined. They move through us, and we are still here. It is not weakness to face pain. It is the beginning of wisdom. We start to see that pain is not just a problem. It is a part of the path. Each time we turn toward it, we grow stronger, more awake, more human. When we face what hurts, we begin to see it clearly. And when we see clearly, we are no longer trapped. We are free, not from pain itself, but from the fear of it. Many of us grow up believing that if we work hard enough, plan well enough, or do all the right things, we can control life. We try to control our future, our emotions, even the people around us. This belief can feel safe. It gives us a sense of order. But when pain arrives, sudden loss, illness, disappointment, it shows us something very different. It shows us that control is an illusion. We cannot control what others do. We cannot control the past. We cannot stop change. And when we try to hold on too tightly, life becomes more difficult. We feel frustrated, angry, even bitter. We ask, why is this happening to me? But maybe the better question is, what can I learn from this? Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means seeing clearly what we can and cannot do. It means taking care of what is in our hands and releasing what is not. This is not easy. It takes time. It takes trust. Often, our need to control comes from fear. We are afraid of being hurt again, afraid of being alone, afraid of not being enough. These fears are human. But the truth is, we don't need to control everything to be okay. In fact, when we stop trying to control everything, we begin to find peace. Pain often forces us to see this. It strips away the idea that we are in charge of everything. At first, this feels like a loss. But slowly, it becomes something else. It becomes freedom. We realize that we are not here to control life. We are here to meet life as it is. This does not mean we stop caring or stop acting. It means we act with wisdom, not with fear. We learn to respond, not react. We learn to move with life, not against it. Seeing through the illusion of control is like opening a window in a dark room. At first, the light may hurt our eyes. But soon, we begin to see more clearly. We see that life is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. And when we stop trying to control every piece of it, we begin to live more fully, with less fear, and with more truth. Our body speaks to us all the time. But in today's busy world, we often stop listening. We rush from one thing to the next, lost in thought, focused on tasks, screens, and worries. We treat the body like a machine that should just keep going. But when pain enters our life, especially emotional pain, the body often speaks more loudly. Tightness in the chest, a heavy feeling in the stomach, tiredness that doesn't go away. These are not just physical symptoms. They are signals. The body is telling us something important. It is asking us to stop, to pay attention, to care. Emotional pain doesn't only live in the mind. It lives in the body too. Our breath becomes shallow when we feel fear. Our shoulders rise when we feel stress. Our hands shake when we feel grief. The body remembers, even when the mind forgets. When we begin to listen, we may notice things we've ignored for years. A tension that never leaves. A tight jaw. A restless heart. These signs are not problems to fix. They are doors to deeper understanding. Instead of asking, "How do I make this stop?" we can ask, "What is this trying to show me?" The body is honest. It doesn't lie the way thoughts can. Our mind may say, "I'm fine," but the body knows better. It gives us clear messages, again and again, until we finally stop and listen. Sometimes, just noticing the body can bring relief. Sitting quietly, placing a hand on your chest, breathing slowly, this can change how we feel, even if just a little. We don't need to force anything. We only need to listen with kindness. Learning from the body takes patience. It may show us old wounds, long buried. It may remind us of pain we didn't know we were still carrying. But in that remembering, healing begins. The body does not ask for perfection. It asks for care, attention, and respect. When we stop treating the body like a stranger, it becomes a guide. It leads us, not away from pain, but through it. And on the other side, we often find something surprising. A sense of peace, a deeper connection to ourselves, and a quiet strength we didn't know we had. In a world filled with noise, silence can feel strange. We are surrounded by voices, music, news, and endless conversations. Even our own thoughts seem loud, jumping from one worry to the next. But when we are in pain, silence is not just helpful, it is necessary. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space where truth can appear. It is in silence that we begin to hear what really matters. When we stop talking, stop reaching, stop trying to explain or fix everything, we may finally begin to feel what has been waiting inside us. Pain often brings confusion. We ask, "Why did this happen?" Or, "What should I do?" These questions have their place, but sometimes answers don't come through thinking. They come through stillness. In silence, we stop chasing answers, and sometimes that is when answers come. At first, silence can be uncomfortable. It may feel empty, or even scary. But that's because we are not used to it. We are used to feeling every moment. When we sit in silence, we face what we have been avoiding. We meet our thoughts, our emotions, our true self. This meeting can be gentle. We don't need to judge what we find. We don't need to name it or fix it. We simply sit, breathe, and listen. Like watching the sky, we allow each cloud, each feeling, each memory to pass through. Silence also teaches us that we don't need to react to everything. We don't need to explain our pain or defend it. We don't need to make it pretty or turn it into a story. We can let it be. And in that allowing, something begins to soften. Transformation does not always come with big changes. Sometimes it begins quietly, like a small crack in a wall. Silence creates the space for that crack to open. It lets in light. It lets in air. It lets us breathe again. Many people search for peace outside, through people, places, or things. But true peace begins in silence. It is always here, waiting beneath the noise. In silence, we find not emptiness, but presence. And presence is where healing begins. Sometimes, pain from the past comes back when we least expect it. A certain smell, a place, or even a simple word can bring back memories we thought were gone. These moments can be surprising and even frightening. We may feel as if we are reliving something old, something we hoped was finished. But the return of the past is not a failure. It is an invitation. Memory is not just in the mind. It lives in the body, in the heart. Even when we forget something with our thoughts, a part of us still remembers. This is not a sign that we are broken. It is a sign that we are human. When old pain returns, our first reaction may be to push it away. We may say, "That was a long time ago," or "I should be over this by now." But healing is not a straight line. It moves in circles. Sometimes we must return to a memory many times before it becomes quiet. The past returns to be seen, to be felt, to be accepted. Not so we can suffer again, but so we can respond differently this time. We are not the same person we were back then. We have new eyes, new strength, and a deeper understanding. This allows us to meet old pain with new care. We don't need to get stuck in the story. We don't need to relive every detail. What matters is that we notice what the memory brings up in us now. Is it sadness? Anger? A longing for something lost? Whatever it is, we can let it rise, breathe with it, and let it fall. Sometimes, memories return simply because a part of us was never fully heard. That part is not asking for judgment. It is asking for compassion, for someone, ourselves, to say, "I see you, I hear you, you're safe now." Healing the past doesn't mean erasing it. It means giving it a place to rest. It means making peace with what was, so it no longer controls what is. When we welcome the past with gentleness, it slowly loses its power. And in its place, we find something deeper: understanding, wisdom, and a quiet sense of wholeness. One of the hardest truths in life is that some things cannot be changed. No matter how much we wish, hope, or try, certain events remain as they are. A loss that cannot be undone, a mistake that cannot be erased, a situation that cannot be controlled. This truth can feel heavy, but it also holds a hidden peace. At first, we may fight against it. We ask why. We replay moments again and again in our mind, thinking of what we could have done differently. This is natural. We want to make sense of our pain. But over time, we begin to see that no amount of thinking can undo what has already happened. Acceptance is not the same as giving up. It is not about saying, "This is fine," when it isn't. It is about saying, "This is real." It is about turning toward life as it is, not as we wish it would be. And in that turning, we begin to find our footing again. When we accept what cannot be changed, we stop using our energy to fight the past. That energy can now return to us. It can be used for healing, for creating, for simply being. Acceptance does not take away the pain, but it takes away the struggle around the pain. This shift is quiet. It might look like breathing deeply, after a long time holding your breath. It might feel like softness, where there was once tightness. We may still feel grief, anger, or regret. But these emotions no longer control us. We are no longer pushing against the river of life. We are learning to float with it. Some people believe that acceptance means weakness, but it is one of the greatest forms of strength. It takes courage to stop fighting what we cannot fix. It takes deep maturity to sit with pain and say, I will carry this, and I will go on. In this space of acceptance, a new kind of peace begins to grow. A peace that doesn't depend on perfect outcomes. A peace that lives in truth, in reality, in the present moment. And from this peace, we can begin again, not because the past is gone, but because we are no longer trapped in trying to change it. Pain is not something we choose. It comes without invitation, without warning. It breaks our plans, shakes our hearts, and changes our direction. But though we do not choose pain, we can choose how we meet it. And in that meeting, pain becomes a teacher. Not every lesson from pain is clear right away. Sometimes it takes months or even years before we begin to understand what it was trying to show us. But slowly, like a seed growing in the dark, wisdom begins to take root. Pain opens our eyes to what is real, what matters, what is lasting. It teaches us humility. When life brings us to our knees, we see that we are not in control of everything. We become softer, less proud. We begin to understand others more deeply because we have suffered too. This kind of wisdom does not come from books. It comes from living, from feeling, from falling, and standing up again. Pain teaches us patience. When we cannot rush our healing, we learn to wait with care. We learn that not everything needs to be fixed right away. Some things need time. Some things only need our presence. It also teaches us clarity. What once seemed important may no longer matter. Pain clears away distractions and brings us back to the center of ourselves. We begin to ask different questions, not how can I win, or how can I be more, but what is true, and how can I live with peace? And perhaps most of all, pain teaches us depth. Before we may have lived on the surface of things. After pain, we feel more deeply. We notice the small moments, a kind word, a warm light, the sound of wind through trees. These things, once invisible, now feel full of meaning. This is not to say that pain is good. It is not something we should seek. But when it comes, we can choose to learn. We can allow it to shape us, not into someone bitter, but into someone wiser, gentler, and more open to life. Pain will visit each of us, but if we listen closely, it will not leave us empty. It will leave us changed, and sometimes even blessed. After we have faced pain, listened to it, and allowed it to teach us, something inside begins to shift. Life no longer feels like something we must fight or fix. Instead, it becomes something we meet, moment by moment, with gentle awareness. Gentle awareness is not a special technique or a rule to follow. It is a way of being. It means moving through life with open eyes and a soft heart. It means noticing what is here, without rushing to judge it, name it, or change it. Most of us are used to living with tension. We try to control, to prove, to achieve. We speak sharply to ourselves in our own minds. We expect perfection, and we push hard. But gentle awareness asks something different. It asks us to pause, to breathe, to soften the way we look at the world, and the way we look at ourselves. This doesn't mean we stop feeling pain or difficulty. It means we meet those experiences differently. When sadness comes, we say, "Hello, I see you." When anger rises, we notice it without needing to act on it. When joy appears, we receive it fully, even if it doesn't last long. Living this way does not make life easier, but it makes life clearer. We begin to see that every moment carries something valuable, not just the happy moments, but the painful ones too. We stop waiting for life to be perfect before we begin to live. Gentle awareness also helps us let go of harshness. We don't need to force ourselves to be strong. We don't need to carry everything alone. We begin to trust that it is okay to rest, okay to feel, okay to be exactly as we are right now. There is a quiet power in living gently. It is not loud. It does not demand attention. But it creates space inside us, space for peace, for truth, for healing. And in that space, we find that we can live with more care, more honesty, and more love. Gentle awareness is a choice we make again and again, not because we are trying to escape life's pain, but because we are learning to walk with it, with steady steps and a heart that remains open. When we go through pain, it may feel like we are breaking. Our world changes. What once felt certain becomes unclear. We may feel lost, confused, or empty. But with time, something begins to grow, quietly, slowly, deep inside. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not shout. It is a quiet strength. This strength is not about always being brave or never falling apart. It is the strength to keep going, even when the path is unclear. It is the strength to be kind to yourself, even when life feels unkind. It is the strength to stay open, even after your heart has been hurt. Pain often strips away what is not essential. It removes the layers we used to hide behind. What remains is something more honest, more grounded. We see life more clearly, not as something we can control, but as something we can meet with presence. The gift behind the struggle is not always what we expect. It is not the return of what was lost. It is not a perfect solution. Often it is something more subtle, a deeper sense of understanding, a greater capacity for compassion, a softening of the heart. We begin to notice beauty in simple things, a quiet morning, the sound of birds, a kind smile from a stranger. We become more aware of how precious this life is, even with its pain. Maybe especially because of it. There is no need to rush the healing process. There is no finish line. What matters is how we move through it, step by step, breath by breath, with honesty and care. If you are carrying pain, please know that you are not alone. And if you have found even a small light within your struggle, that light is part of your strength. It is real. It is yours. Thank you for spending this time with me. If these words have offered you comfort or insight, I am deeply grateful. Your support through likes, subscriptions, kind comments, and even super thanks means more than I can say. They help me continue sharing what is in my heart, and they remind me that we are walking this path together. May your days be gentle, and may your quiet strength carry you through whatever comes.